Hey everybody, it's McDermott with Shift Insiders, Shifted Kitchen. On tonight's episode, because it is in the evening here on the East Coast, in the good old US of A, we are working on soups. Talking with many of you, my Shift Insider friends, some of you are like aces in the kitchen. You are chefs, you are culinary kings and queens. And the rest of us, some of us, are more like, okay, how can I get in and out of the kitchen as fast as I can, create something that tastes good, will keep me satisfied for hours, right? And it's going to keep my shift moving forward. That's really where these Shifted Kitchen shows, put the emphasis. The focus is on simplicity and, ensuring that it's really the right combinations of those macronutrients to make sure that you have more fat than protein, and more fat and protein combined than carbohydrate. When you think about comfort foods, those rich stews, of course, we think of things like macaroni and cheeses. We think about creamy potato-based maybe soups. That used to be my kind of comfort food. I loved creamy potato and corn chowder. That would have been my go-to, right? Well, we can recreate really those comfort foods just by pulling out the carbohydrate. We get to keep all that wonderful fat, that flavor in. That's the part of it that really gives us the comfort, right? But the carbohydrate out of it, now it doesn't become compromising. With the carbohydrate in, it is compromising. Carbohydrate out, not compromising. So, the flour of our kitchen, I always use that phrase because, good old cauliflower. I know before I began shifting for my daughter's, trying to resolve her situation, I didn't touch on this very much. If I was doing a vegetable tray for the party or, once in a while some mixed vegetables, but whenever I see a twofer in the produce aisle when it comes to cauliflower, I always get two. Or I'll buy one and I'll buy a package of already pre-cut, for those times when I move quickly. But when we're recreating our potato-based creamy soups, cauliflower, she's the queen. She's the one who becomes the potato alternative. And with the potato, we're going to be at least 25 carbohydrates per serving. You do this, it's about 3. So can you see how we accumulate a deficit? Basically, we accumulate a deficit of carbohydrate, glucose, and in doing so, insulin levels stay low and fat burning is a go. So for those of you who are not as super in the kitchen like I had been, let's think about creating a soup. And I know you have the recipe. I put it up on the Facebook page. Also, it's in your resources and things like that. But I love soups because there's no rules, right, Lauren? Recipes are meant to be used kind of as a rubric, just to follow along. Break out of that and just eyeball, your meals. Try that. Well, what do we need for soup? We need some fluid, right? So a good choice is, if you're like I am, I'm always looking for already something pre-made. I usually use Pacific brand. It's a nice organic, good quality brand of chicken broth or beef stock. I also have a chicken bone broth here because when I went there to the store today to pick these up for you guys, they didn't have the chicken broth in a big version. They just had the bone broth. So I'm going to make it with bone broth tonight. There's really no right or wrong. You can make it with beef stock instead of chicken stock. You can do a vegetarian stock, whichever works for you. So there's my fluid. That's easy, right? And then what's my flavoring? What's my fat going to be? Well, to make something creamy, I always go to good old, Kerrygold butter and my, what did I get today? Organic Valley, my heavy whipping cream. And the beautiful thing about these two things, neither one of them contains the casein, protein, or the lactose, sugar, that can be problematic for those of us who may have some kind of lactose or casein sensitivity. So isn't that great? We get to have some great fat without that problematic protein and problematic carbohydrate, lactose, sugar, that often comes in dairy products. So these two work great. So and then of course, seasoning. I have just good old salt and pepper. These guys are almost done. I'm trying to use them up. Good old salt and pepper. I have some dried parsley because I always have that. But if I know I'm going to make a batch of soup, I will make sure I get some fresh. I just love my parsley. And when you start using some fresh herbs, if you hadn't already, it really does like a pow, nice flavor punch to it. Plus we know parsley is fantastic for potassium, and we want to keep those electrolyte stores and those minerals up, and getting your parsley in is a very good idea. The other thing I was going to share, of course, your potato alternative is your cauliflower, but adding celery, which is another super low carbohydrate vegetable, and some onion, which is a little bit more carbohydrate. We're talking very small amount, okay? The soup we're going to make this evening, it turns out to be like a portion size, about 6 grams of carbohydrate for the whole thing. It's really, really low. And it has 7 grams of protein, and the fat is going to be up to you. How much butter are you going to put in? I've already put in at least 4 tablespoons. I already started while you guys, well, actually Charlie was getting ready. So, you know, this is my friend Lauren had given us this great soup pot, because she's a soup cooker. She's a super cooker. And I had just put, you know, chunk of butter in there. I sliced up celery. I love doing it this way. Some people have to do the rib, do 5. I just go, just start hacking it off. There's nothing graceful about me in the kitchen. I'm just going to get my other mitt out. And are we on, Trent?
We are.
Oh, we're on. Yes. So, for your benefit, what I did already is, if you can see this, I have my, yeah, I think you can see it, just my celery. I have 2 medium-sized onions chopped up in there.
Yeah, bring it real close.
2 medium-sized onions, so it should smell like Thanksgiving morning if you're the, that's hot, Char. That's hot.
Hot, it's
Ooh.
hot.
Okay.
Everybody's hot.
2 medium onions, and then I used almost a half of a, you know, stalk, a full stalk of celery. Okay, and to that, I'm going to add some parsley. But before I do that, okay, is it hot in your kitchen? Because it's hot in our kitchen. So what I did ahead of time, you can take your cauliflower, chop it up and put it in a skillet in some butter and heat it up that way and cook it. I like to just chop that thing up and I put it on a, you know, our One Pan Wednesday, you know, that's we try to create some systems for ourselves. So every Wednesday night, you're just thinking about making a meal that's on one pan. So I just squirted these with, did I leave that out? Yes. I have olive oil in a squirt bottle because it's just easier than pouring. I might waste it. So I just squirt those heads down, and I put salt and pepper, and I put some paprika. I like paprika, and I also like a bay seasoning. That's just what I like. You put on what you like, but that was in the oven, and it's going to finish cooking. So I just make sure that the cauliflower is till about tender. You know, depending upon your oven, 325 to 350, just pay attention to it. Sometimes you can pay attention to it with your nose, right? Especially if you got a good sniffer. So I'm going to add some parsley in here. Now remember, when we are using, some of the benefits of soups is it's really, you know, when you, especially if you are just beginning your shift, you are much more prone than those of us who are already kind of established to get dehydrated. Your body, because your insulin levels are like, wow, they were here and now you've been really pushing them down, your body's going to very easily be releasing fluid. So we want to make sure that we drink, my water bottle's over there, but you're drinking about half of your body weight in ounces, you know, so literally it does come down about 8-ounce glasses, about 8 of those a day. You want to get that in. Even if you don't think you're thirsty, you're going to be thirsty. So when you think about it, if you have soups, you're going to have a little bit more fluid intake with your meals, right? Another thing that is great about having some soups, I'm going to turn that back up, those of you who are already in that place where your shift is happening, you are establishing longer periods where you're not hungry, you're grabbing onto that intermittent fasting movement, right? So during that fast, you might go for 5 hours, 7 hours, you might go through an entire day, but you might get that little bit of a hungry, you know, your body needs some fuel. Having soup on hand is an excellent way to fulfill that, you know, that fuel need without completely, you know, kind of stopping that fast that you've already established. I love having this cream of cauliflower soup. I mean, Aaron will vouch for that. I oftentimes have a batch of it in the very bottom of my refrigerator because I like to even eat it cold, especially in the summertime. It tastes so good and it's just so filling because that butter is so darn good. What I always say, butter in the tank, money in the bank. Okay, So I'm going to put another tablespoon in. And again, you can read the sheet. I'll tell you what the sheet says, about 3 to 4 tablespoons. And I'm telling you, I use about 4 to 7. Even that one recipe we have for cake, I love that because it calls for 4 sticks of butter. 4 sticks of butter in the icing. Remember the first time we made that jar? We're like, what is this? So good. So again, you're going to decide what you want to put in. You could just do cauliflower, no onions, right? Karen Tinder doesn't like onions. She doesn't like peppers, she doesn't like onions, she likes tomatoes. She's tough to please, but she's one of our most successful shifters. So look at that, she's doing it. I always love scallions. For some reason, I like to see those little green circles floating in my soup. Although I'm going to actually blend this soup up, and that's another thought. You can keep your soup chunky, right, and very brothy, or you can use a blender and really mix it in fine so it's really, looks like chowder more, just really kind of a thick soup. Okay, there's in there. And all I'm doing is heating that up until that gets nice and soft, as Charlie showed you in the camera. So all I have in there is butter, salt and pepper, some celery, some onion, and some scallions, and of course our potassium punch, parsley, right? So now I'm going to bring and again, I would have cooked the cauliflower like in the afternoon, or depending upon your day, right? Just get that thing in the oven, walk away from it, so when it comes time to actually put your soup together, it's ready to go. You're not standing over a hot oven, right? From here, all I'm going to do is take this and put it into my pot, and it's still a little bit warm, so I'll be careful here. But my big chunks, and they're soft enough that I could actually, just put my spoon through it. Okay? But even that, no real rules. Just if you feel like you can eat it, it's good to go. Make sure you get all of that oil, that kind of browned up for you, because that's where the good flavor is. That's where the fat is. The fat is the flavor all the time, right? This is really awkward with that microwave there. Okay, so I'm going to get as much of that good stuff as I possibly can in there. And I'll send this to my cleanup crew. That's me. Just joking. Send that to the cleanup crew. Now, I have, that looks really bad, doesn't it? Because it looks like, it's just a giant pot of cauliflower, right? But we're going to take that and mash that up. Here we're going to add in some of the fluid, okay? Don't add your cream in yet. Just get your broth of choice. Shake it up. Put on a T-Swift song, shake it off, shake it off. I already took that whole thing off. Okay, here we go. Now, this is where you decide. If you want a lot of soup, you want it to be more fluid, put the whole thing, put 2 in, put 3 in. I like my soups to be thick and creamy, so I usually just use 1 box of this. Does anybody want to know how much is in there? 12 fluid ounces to 1 head of cauliflower. Okay, so 1 head of cauliflower, 1 box, works out really nicely. And it sits in there, you can turn it up just a smidge, and now what you'll see is my vegetables are just covered, okay? Can you see that? They're just kind of covered up. I'll probably pour it on Blue's head, but what I like about that is that in this particular, depending upon what kind of pot you're using, all that too, but that water level just comes right to the top of that cauliflower. Now here, we can actually leave it soup just like that. We can do, I would say, what's your weapon of choice? We can use just a potato masher, and you can just press that in there and start just kind of pressing down your cauliflower and making it softer and more pliant. Or, I bought myself one of these things,
Just clarification on the cauliflower, baking it is the preference?
No, however you want to do it. You can put, sorry. Yeah, so, I'll use this microphone. So when you are doing your cauliflower, you can either have a skillet with some butter in there and just do all of your vegetables right in there and soften them up and heat them up, all right, cook them. I personally like to get it in the oven because somehow that roasting thing tastes really, really good. Plus, I can walk away from it. I can put that in the oven, do something else, come back, have it ready to go. So there's really no right or wrong. It's your preference in your kitchen area, okay? Does that answer the question, hopefully?
I think it does.
Yeah. You guys flatter me. If you knew me. You'd be like, okay, I'm not asking her how to cook my cauliflower. I'm not the kitchen girl. But actually, that's probably why this works. So this is an immersion blender. And for my friends out there who'd be like, wait, what the what? Which is what I was. So this is a two-piece thing. Immersion, it immerses into the fluid, and it's a little blender blade, okay? So when you are deciding, I'm going to be a soup chef, I'm going to be a shifted super soup chef, great thing to invest in. Because any soups that you make, you can actually just blend them. Because many of your recipes will say, okay, now transfer your soup ingredients into your blender. Who wants to do that? I can't imagine pulling a giant blender out and pouring this in and now, not to say that's not cool for you guys who are culinarians, but for me, I'd rather just put this in here, blade it up, sorry, and you just kind of run it around there. I wish I had a clear copy to see, but that's the first time I've laughed all day. It doesn't sound very good. And I think I had shown you a cup of this on Facebook a few weeks back. I said, if you guys were around me, you'd be sharing my soup with me. And I showed you a cup of my cauliflower soup. And let me just, it's not, I can make this as creamy as I want or as piecey as I want. But, so basically you're just, you know, just grinding it up. This is hot. No, it's not that bad. So now you know what I have looks like a nice creamy cauliflower soup. And what's nice about cauliflower, the vegetable itself creates a creamy texture, right? So from there, now I add my delicious cream. Everything's a dream when you add some cream, right? And again, I'm going to decide how much I want to put in there. My recommendation is you do a taste test. And you do have a recipe, so it has been thought out, so you can follow that verbatim. But again, I would recommend that you just, you know, kind of do it on your own and decide how much creamy texture you want, right? So there's my creamy cauliflower soup. I'm tasting it. I love that. And sometimes I say, you know what? I think I want a little more butter in that. You know, we get away with stuff in shift, don't we? I remember watching a show. Remember we were watching The Chew, Charlie? And we were up at New York. Mm-hmm. And they said, oh, put the butter in. Remember they really,
that's right.
They were, it was like this sinful thing. Yeah, it was The Chew, the TV show The Chew, ABC. We were up in New York, in the audience, or actually behind the scenes, and it was this big to-do about, oh, and there's butter. And we're thinking, oh my gosh, that's what we're worried about. So again, putting more flavor in my soup.
We have a sugar question from Judy.
Judy, stop.
Judy Risk.
Oh, Judy, hey Judy.
Curious, Barb, I see that Pacific small packs there's cane sugar in it. How do I reconcile using it?
How do I reconcile? Whew, it's like coming to church here.
Yeah, I'm not sure they can hear that all.
Okay, maybe that was a good thing. Okay. We're saying that these have sugar in it?
Cane sugar. The dreaded cane sugar.
I need my glasses, okay. So when I hear that, all I hear is carbohydrate. I'm not afraid of sugar. So there's one, I see in this I have one carbohydrate. I see chicken broth, chicken flavor, sea salt, cane sugar, onion powder. Yeah, so in 1 cup, I'll have 1 gram of carbohydrate. That's how I reconcile it. And we talked about this last night in our coaching.
Yeah.
Just because something has a smidgen of sugar in it, sugar is no more offensive than any other carbohydrate. It's a gram of glucose. So
Sugar.
yeah, so don't sweat it. Reconcile. Okay, so there's our cauliflower soup. I feel like I didn't do it justice. Did I talk enough about it? Oh, the other thought you can do with your cauliflower soup is xanthan gum. Okay.
Oh, Son was just asking that question.
What,
Great
Son?
timing.
Son and I, we have a little something. We have a little connection going on. So here's the deal with this. There's guar gum. There's xanthan gum. These are extremely low carbohydrate alternatives to using flour like grain flours, to thicken any one of your gravies, your sauces, your soups. The interesting thing is 1 tablespoon of this has 7 grams of carbohydrate, but all 7 of those grams of carbohydrate are fiber, so it's 0. Crazy, right? But here's the other thing. I've never used it.
You never use it?
I've never used it. And no, I shouldn't say I've never used it. I think in the beginning I would put it into some of the different things I was making.
What does it do?
It just thickens it up a little bit. So, you know, I could maybe if I was an Italian chef and I was making the gravy for the chicken marsala, things like that. But I've never used it in my soups because I never needed to use it. But you know what? Let's break it. Let's do it today. I'm going to even open this package up. So,
Judy says, perfect. Hubby will be happy about that.
About what?
Using the cane sugar.
Oh yeah, we're not afraid of sugar. Did I say? I think this calls for. Now here's what I do know. These thickeners, it's not like the more you use, the thicker it will get. No, you have to use just about a 1/4 teaspoon. It's a small amount to make that thickener. If you keep adding it in, it will get clumpy. Not cool. That's probably why I never bother. I'm like, you know what? I got enough going on. I don't be worried about clumps, right?
And Wendy says, I use glutamate to thicken stuff. Glutamine.
Glutamine? Right. Wait, glutamine chart?
Glucomannan.
Glucocamine. Okay, chart.
She uses something to thicken stuff. I don't know what it is.
It can't say. It really can't say what you're saying with it.
Glucomannan.
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 Okay, you know, this is. I'm very brave coming here live to stand here and try and figure out what he's saying. That is it. Wendy Sisk who's saying that?
It is.
She knows. Okay. Wendy will help us out. There are all kinds of alternative, thickeners out there that we can use and or not use. And again, these are just obviously concepts, ideas, rubrics, framework to work within. The most important thing is that we have enough fat, which of course is the flavor, which is of course what allows us to do this, that fasting that occurs between each and every one of those meals. The soup's also going to have that wonderful hydrating thing going on. If you're using bone broth, you're going to get some collagen in there, which is an excellent gut healing, action. And the fact that you're using things like grass-fed butter and organic cream, there's no lactose or casein involved, and that's beautiful too. And for you vegetarians in our group out there, again, you can use just a vegetarian broth as well.
Wendy says it's a fiber supplement.
Oh, it's a fiber supplement, okay.
Oh,
thank you.
Chris says, hi guys, I add bacon to my cauliflower.
Oh yeah, well, if you notice the recipe, you can put bacon bits in, or you can even just have them crunchy and ready. When you put your serving size in, you just put a little bit on top.
Love it. Wendy says, Konjac extract powder.
Konjac?
I know, Konjac.
Cognac? Oh, he's bad. He's not good at words, and he doesn't do that. He doesn't go looking for stuff like I do. So he's like, oh my gosh. But well, I think I'm going to wrap it up because my soup is hot. I'm hotter.
Someone caught you.
What?
Violating instructions.
Did I?
No. Grace says your instructions say to mix the thicker separately. You just poured it in.
Yeah. Well, remember I said earlier that please don't follow my directions. Just make your soup as you want to, right? But yes, so if you're going to use a thickener, no, I can't be trusted. Not in the kitchen. So if you're going to use something like xanthan gum, they do want you using that in a blender that needs a high speed. And I should have done to it again because I'm looking at my soup and I see my little clumps, which is probably why years ago I was like, I don't need it. It didn't serve to make my soup in any kind of a culinary raised standard. It tasted great without it, so that's what I did. So in conclusion...
Son's asking, did the xanthan gum change the taste? And the answer is we don't know.
No, it doesn't change the taste at all. No, the xanthan gum doesn't have any...
Doesn't taste like gum?
No, Char, it doesn't taste like gum. Gum has flavor. You know, it's just like a benign tackiness.
You're not a fan?
No, I'm not a fan. He's asking him, are you a fan? I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. The more streamlined and simple and guaranteed is going to work, the better. So I just don't need to make that any thicker than it already is. And if I do want to make it thicker, I'll add more cream and more butter.
So Son says just as good without it, and I think the answer is yes.
Yes, just as good without it.
But then Chris adds, she adds shredded cheese to thicken it too.
Or we could add some sour cream and mix. You know what? I'm gonna do that right now because we have sour cream. I bought it yesterday.
I knew I got extra for a reason.
And so here's the thing: if you end up putting too much of your broth in, or too much, and you're like, oh, you know what? I want it to be thicker. Now it's too liquidy. I always have cream cheese in the house, and I just happen to have a nice thing of sour cream.
Grace says this was simple.
Oh, good, Grace. You know, KISS, keep it simple. Stupid, and I don't mean that in a mean way, but you do. You keep it simple. And I'm stirring that up, and again, you can't see it, but it's just going to add, obviously, a little. And I'm going to need to do this though. I need to do this. Immersion. How many of you have immersion blenders? I'm not the only fancy, right?
Son makes it thick and she smothers a pork chop with it. All kinds of ways.
Wait. Son makes it thicker by smothering a pork chop in it?
She makes it thick, I guess the soup thick, and then she smothers a pork chop with it.
So you use
like a gravy.
Use like a pork chop gravy, absolutely. But, you know, here's blue. I mean, by the end of it all, that looks pretty darn good, right? It's a nice buttery yellow color. I remember just recently, Charlie's sister came and stayed with us for the 4th of July weekend, and she shifts, but very softly. She's not involved in our community, so she doesn't know everything. I put this soup down in front of her for lunch. She almost like fell off her chair. She's like, oh my gosh, this tastes amazing. Because it's the butter, and it's the cream, and it's the fact that afterwards we're not feeling lousy, we're feeling energized and sane and sated, and we're not going to think about food for hours. So I'm going to close right here, right now.
Grace, answering your question, she's had that tool for 20 years.
Oh, you've had it for, yeah. I haven't had mine for 20 years, but a good decade, you know, about 10. I was making soups. I love making, what's my roasted red pepper, creamy roasted red pepper. That's a little more carbohydrate, okay? But all of you who are shifting, oh my gosh, how much less carbohydrate have you already, you know, moved or evolved into? That some of these other kind of foods, you know, will have plenty of space within your, you know, your weekly repertoire, okay? So I'm going to say peace out with gratitudes and great vibes. Thank you so much for joining us for our episode of Shifted Kitchen. And soup's on because when there's butter in the tank, there's money in the bank. Okay.
Money in the bank!
Money in the health bank. That's what I mean. Money in the health bank. And we're going to have dinner. I think we're going to make some bacon.
All right. This is my cameo. This is my big...
We need a theme song and a dance to start out.
My big contribution. I get to turn it down, turn it off, end meeting. See y'all.
Thanks for sharing, everybody.